Hello, amazing fourth graders. It's Mr. Torbain here for lesson 6.2. Take a look at your objective. Your I can statement is I can use multiplication to generate equivalent fractions. Generate. That means to make. So what are fractions? You've learned before that fractions are parts of a whole. They're less than one whole. So in other words, fractions are less than one. Let's take a look at this circle right here. If I split that circle in half, there's one half and another half. I could split it into 5 parts of a whole, and that would be 1/5. If I split it into 8, like a pizza, it would be 1/8 for each slice, and also 12ths, and so on. So what are the parts of a fraction? Let's take a look at the fraction 1/2. In the numerator, that tells how many of the whole there are. So right here in this circle, one of these pieces of the circle is shaded. Now, down at the denominator, it tells how many parts make a whole. So as you can see right here, 1 and 2 parts make a whole. 1 part of the whole is our numerator. So 2 parts total down in the denominator. 1 part is your numerator. Now let's take a look at something that's going to help you with today's lesson. Let's take a look at equivalent fractions. Equivalent means equal. So fractions that have the same value. Right here, I have 1/2, and an equivalent fraction is 3/6, represents the same amount. I have 2/4, which is equivalent to 4/8, and 3/5, which is equivalent to 6/10. So what do you notice about these numbers? Did you realize any patterns? What I noticed is that when you multiply the numerator and the denominator by a certain number, it creates an equivalent fraction. So 1/2 times 3 in the numerator and 3 in the denominator gives me 3/6. What number times 2/4 equals 4/8? 2 over 2. 2 times 2 and 4 times 2, that's what we multiplied in this example. And in 3/5, we also multiplied by 2 to make the equivalent fraction 6/10. So, how do we use multiplication to make equivalent fractions? Now would be a great time to take some notes. You multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So 2/4 times 2, or like we saw on the previous slide, or 3 to make 6/12. That is an equivalent fraction. 2/4 is equivalent to 6/12. They are equal. Okay. Now I'm going to multiply 2/4 times 4 on the numerator and 4 on the denominator. Whatever you do to the top, to the bottom, you must do to the top. So 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. 8/16, and 2/4 are an equivalent fraction. I'm going to multiply 2/4 times 5. What equivalent fraction do you get? Maybe you already know. When you multiply it by 5, you get 10/20. I'm going to multiply times 6 now. What do you get? 2/4 times 6. Equivalent fraction is 12/14. All of the fractions you see on this slide, 2/4, 6/12, 8/16, 10/20, 12/24 are all equivalent. So how can we find the missing part of a fraction? Let's say you're given the part at the numerator of 20. What number times 5 will equal 20? I know multiplying by 4 will give me 20, and anything I do to the numerator, I must do to the denominator. So 6 times 4 is 24. Now, what about over here with 2/3 and some numerator with 21 down in the denominator? What number can you multiply times 3 to equal 21? You multiply times 7. Anything you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. So 2 times 7 is 14. 2/3 and 14/21 are equivalent fractions. Pause the video and try the last one on your own. Welcome back. 3 times 4 equals 12. So you must multiply your denominator 7 times 4 and get 28. 3 sevenths and 12 28ths are equivalent fractions. Hopefully, you're understanding how to make equivalent fractions. Remember, you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Now, let's take a look and see if the fractions are equal. Remember, another word for equal is equivalent. We have 3 fifths and 6 fifteenths. I know that 3 times 2 equals 6, so 5 times 2 should equal the number we see here. It does not, so those are not equivalent. When you multiply by 2, you do not get 10 in your denominator, so they are not equivalent. All right, let's take a look at 6 twelfths and 8 sixteenths. Well, I know that I have to multiply 6 times 2 to get 12, and 8 times 2 equals 16. Since they both multiply by 2, they are equivalent. The last thing I want to show you is an example from your GoMath book that's going to help you when you practice on your own and when you complete your quick check in Think Central. The instructions read, write 2 equivalent fractions. Remember, equivalent fractions mean that they are equal. They have the same value. Different numbers in the numerator and denominator, but they have an equal or same value. So I'm going to take a look at 4 fifths, the fraction in number 2. In order to find an equivalent fraction, I need to multiply the numerator, or the number on top, by the denominator, the number on bottom. 4 fifths, 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 fifths is equivalent to 8 tenths. The next one I'm going to take a look at is multiplying times 3 over 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times 3 is 15. 12 fifteenths is another equivalent fraction. 4 fifths is equal to 8 tenths, which is also equal to 12 fifteenths. Again, let's revisit your I can statement. Your I can statement is, I can multiply to generate equivalent fractions. Have a wonderful day. Feel free to rewatch this video and if you need any more help.